Jennings, Hetep and Ma'at. That means I'm offering you truth. Welcome to Professor and the Priestess. Today we have a very special episode. It's called Freedom Time. I want to welcome my lovely co-host, Mama Regina Jennings. Mama Regina, before I proceed, may I have permission to speak?
Yes, you do.
Give thanks. So, if it's your first time here, welcome to Professor and Priestess. This series is, well, this season we're covering why revolution is the only solution. And we began by sharing how the Black Panther Party, who Mama Regina is a OG Black Panther, right? Inspired Tehuti Ma'at and our 11 pillar platform. It was inspired by the Panthers 10-point platform. So we've been going through each pillar of Tehuti Ma'at this season. And today we are doing the pillar of freedom, which is why our episode is called Freedom Time. And we really want to talk about how revolutionary institutions are able to genuinely get us to liberation, right? So I want to go ahead and allow Mama Regina to introduce herself to anyone who might be here for the first time. Also, if you're here, if you're returning, welcome back. And if you're here with us live, please feel free to engage with us in the chat. You can go ahead and put any comments or questions that you have, and we'll answer your questions. And you could be a part of the show. So without further ado, Mama Regina, can you introduce yourself?
Sure. I am Regina Jennings, and as the good sister Neff said, I'm an original member of the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense in Oakland, California, founded by Huey P. Newton and Bobby G. Seale. Now, that was when I was a very disturbed teenager, but I was not so disturbed that I didn't understand the viciousness of racist police, because I had seen some people that I knew very well, children as a matter of fact, be brutally beaten by the police. After that experience, I shouldn't even say after that experience, because I still feel like I'm a member of the Black Panther Party for self-defense. I still practice all of the tenets. I still demand absolute freedom. I definitely demand reparations, and so on and so on. But in the interim, what I did do was to go to college. Not that I even knew that I wanted to go to college, but I was giving workshops in Philadelphia because I'm originally from Philly. But I caught a late plane to Oakland, California to join Huey and Bobby. But coming back to Philadelphia, I gave workshops for people, all kinds of workshops, but ones I really centered on were workshops that dealt with writing. And it's so funny. I hadn't even had a book out or anything like that, but Black Panthers were poets. People really don't think about that about them. You know, you think of the Panthers, you might think of right on and, guns. And good, think of those too, because we were your army. But Panthers also wrote poetry and performed poetry. And I was very much in love with one of the Panther brothers from a distance, our Prentice Bunchy Carter, because he was an absolute poet. And he would have his poetry published in the Black Panther newspaper rather regularly. And I think about him often because undercover, rotten, low-life pig, dog animals had him killed. And guess what? The people that pulled the trigger look just like you all right? So he's been just emblazoned in all of our minds as Panthers, because he was, first of all, he was drop dead gorgeous, courageous, bold, and a poet. I mean, he used to be a gang leader of about 3 to 5,000 brothers. So you know what kind of man you must be dealing with our Prentice Bunchy Carter. And so did the FBI and the police, and they wanted him killed along with John Huggins. So anyway, when I came back to Philly, I'm giving workshops, writing workshops, and this little college student, and I mean little, I'm saying little because she was short, and she was like, "Oh, you're so smart," And I'm like, I didn't think I was that smart. She said, are you in Temple University? And I'm like, no, I'm not in any university. And she said, you should be in a university. And this little Black woman, I'm still friends with her today, literally held my hand and took me inside of a university. And there were some Black professors teaching classes for free to the Black community. This is in the 1970s. So I sat in a class with the poet Sonia Sanchez, and
I
that was
love
it. I
concepts.
said, you know what? I didn't say anything in class because I was begging my children to please be quiet. Shh, shh. I was dumbstruck by the notion of studying poetry, which I'd never had done, from the Black literary tradition, and by the graciousness of, Queen Mother Sonia Sanchez. So that was my first instance of really seriously thinking about going to school. I did. Not only did I get a baccalaureate, but I got a master's in creative writing and English and a PhD in African American studies. And writing is very much a part of who I am because one of the things I want to do while I am on earth is to, in fact, capture the legacy of the Black Panther Party. And you can see on the screen, I have a website that I really want all of you to visit, okay? Because it showcases not only all of my books, but books of other members of the Black Panther Party. That's important, Black people, because not only do you need to know, but your children need to know that we existed for them. One of the things that the captains were taught firsthand by Bobby Seale and Huey Newton, and then the captains would teach us, the rank and file soldiers. You got to know that you had a vanguard army willing to die for you. We were willing to live for you. But if we had to go, if we had to give up the ghost, if we had to go to jail, we were willing to do that for you
And
because
many
there
are
was
still
no way that
still.
we could stop the rampant police brutality we felt was to do, like Malcolm said, speak in a language that your enemies understand. You don't speak French to an Englishman. You don't speak German to a Frenchman. You don't just try to talk to racist police with dogs and guns and clubs. You show them that if they mess with you, they have consequences for their brutality. So that's who I am. That's who I intend to be. And I'm very happy to be here. But one last thing I want to say, Neff, because our last episode, I messed up one of our political prisoners' names. I got it confused. I was talking about Imam Jamil Al-Amin, but I confused him with Jalil Mutakim. You can see how their names are rather similar. But I want all of you to know that Jamil Al-Amin used to be H. Rap Brown, and he was one of the baddest brothers that ever walked the earth. Okay, and just look him up if you don't know of him, H. Rap
Yeah.
Brown. And this is what happens when you step forward in a aggressive way. The FBI, CIA will follow you because they don't want strong Black men. Now, Jamil Al-Amin is 79 years old. And about 10 years ago or so, 10 years ago, maybe 15 by now, they incarcerated him for a murder that he definitely did not commit. And I'm saying this because I'd like for some of you, if you feel inclined, to write him. Okay? Look up his address, his jail address online, and write the good brother. He used to be, like I said, H. Rap Brown, and he wrote a book called Die Nigga Die. That book is hysterical. But later in life, when he became an imam, all right, praying 5 times a day and depending on Allah for everything, okay, he wrote another book called Beyond Revolution. It is very good. I learned a lot about Islam. I learned a lot about him, stuff that I didn't know. And he is, in fact, they're trying to allow him to die in prison. Now, we're not having that. I belong to several groups dealing with mass incarceration, but I wanted you to know about him. And I also, since I mentioned him earlier, Jalil Mutakim. If you come to my website, right on the opening page, you'll see his book. He was a member of the Black Liberation Army. He is one of the reasons that Assata is sitting in Cuba. Okay. And he just did about 39 or 49 years in jail. But he's sane. He's working with young people. I love him very much. And he wrote a book called We Are Our Own Liberators. When Neff talks about freedom, freedom is liberation. So I encourage you all to pick up his book as well. And it's listed, you'll see it on my website.
I say, give thanks, Mama Regina. Before I want to speak on our political prisoners, but before I do that, if you're new here and you don't know who I am, I'm Aust NeferKa. I'm the mother of Tehuti Ma'at. Tehuti Ma'at is a revolutionary instrument that's focused on actualizing and giving birth to revolutionary institutions in the areas of healing, art, and education. Right. And we have several different cooperative ventures that we've built out, but really we're focused on aligning with advanced souls who are really here for the resurrection of African people. So I want to go ahead and respond to what you just said, though, Mama Regina. By the way, Mama Regina's website is also linked in the description. You see it scrolling across here at panthersister.com. So everything that she just referenced, you can see that the books that she referenced from her website on her website. And I want to encourage everybody who watches to do your research. When we mention books and when we talk about different people and things that might be unfamiliar to you, do your research. Like there's so many YouTube videos about H. Rap Brown. Like we really need to get to the point where we have we're aware of the legacy that we're standing on. We're aware of how we got here, because the fact that our political prisoners are in prison right now, right? We're talking about freedom right now. They don't have the freedom that we have. And we really don't have a lot of freedom. But what we do have is because the sacrifices and the bloodshed of those who came before us. And I find that particularly this generation, my generation included, is very ungrateful and very disconnected and disjointed from the struggle that preceded us, that even allows us to be here with the level of comfort that we're enjoying. So I think it's really, really important for people to be familiar with the political prisoners, those freedom fighters who are still alive, never mind the ones who literally gave their life in the struggle for liberation, for freedom. So I'm glad that you mentioned all of that, Mama Regina. And then what I want to say to begin is I want us to define what we mean by freedom. Okay. And I want to begin with a definition that we use it's the spiritual warrior definition of freedom. And we created this definition. Spiritual Warrior Society is really like a loose network of self-initiated people, right? And what Tehuti Ma'at is building on is that foundation of spiritual warriorship, right? And I've talked about this before in previous episodes. Also, if you haven't watched any of the other episodes, definitely click in the description and you'll see all the different episodes that we've had. Definitely go back and watch the other episodes because we've really touched on some really, really powerful and potent information and wisdom. So definitely check that out. But essentially, I've been talking about how Tehuti Ma'at is building on everything that came before us, but really from a critical analysis of looking at what was done really well and what needed strengthening, and really synthesizing that and creating an institution builder that can actually sustain us to actually having the success within our lifetime of what we're seeking, which is liberation, right? And we know that we need fundamental institutions, revolutionary institutions, in order to do that. So the instrument is designed literally to create institutions and to support those who are developing institutions and to cultivate them as cooperative institutions. So at the foundation, the economics of the actual institution is cooperative. So that already is revolutionary in the context of transitioning us out of capitalism, right? So it honors the fact that we're in a capitalist system. And okay, so if we're going to get the bag, let's at least get it together.
Mm-hmm.
So that being said, we're building on this foundation of spiritual warriorship, which is really all about healed leadership, right? We're talking about revolving beyond the idea of a
Mm-hmm.
leader and going into the idea of, or the reality of, the truth of a warrior. And there are 5 forces of spiritual warriorship, which are love, light, leadership, power, and freedom. So we had to define for ourselves what each of those forces means. And again, I always lift Huey's definition of power, which I have on here. Let me put it on the screen. Power is the ability to define phenomenon and make it act in a desired manner. Um, I actually just noticed that typo there, so I'm going to edit that. Desired manner. So we have to define for ourselves what we mean, especially when it comes to phrases or words that have become cliche, right? And they've lost a lot of value because people are just going off of, I don't know, whatever the dictionary definition of it is. And we have to be able to define for ourselves, what do we mean by freedom? So the definition that we came up with, and this is through various retreats and different gatherings and working with different, warrior spirits who have come for this work, who are dedicated for this work. And the definition we have for freedom is the flexible expression of the original state of being where the healed inner voice reigns supreme. Okay? So I'm going to repeat it one more time. Freedom is the flexible expression of the original state of being where the healed inner voice reigns supreme. The reason why I wanted to give us that definition is because a lot of people think freedom is doing whatever you want. And I want to ask you, Mama Regina, what is liberation? When we're talking about freedom, we're talking about liberation. What is liberation? Because a lot of people simply think being able to do whatever they want, or seemingly do whatever we want, is freedom. So what is freedom? What is
Well,
liberation?
when I think of freedom, I have to go back to Huey and Bobby. I really do. That's the first example that came to my mind when you mentioned freedom. And I'll tell you why. These two brothers were very sick and tired of watching Martin Luther King, although they loved him. They absolutely understand that, dear people who are listening. The Panthers loved Dr. Martin Luther King. But the concept of seeing him being spat upon and then thrown in jail, and his other marchers, dogs were sick on those Black people, biting out parts of their middle, old women, and I really do mean old sisters, being picked up by pigs and thrown in a paddy wagon for marching, for marching. Okay, that just got to be too much. All right, it became, I think, for Huey and Bobby, it was too organized. It was too within the law, the racist laws, and thinking that even brought Black people to this country. So they wanted to break free from that. And they were tired because they were in a black study group at Merritt College. They were in a black group, and it was a wonderful group. Okay, we need groups like that even today, where they would look over, revolutionary material from Africa, Africa and America. But they wanted to solve Black people's problems collectively. And they felt that sitting back talking about the problem was simply not enough. That was not bringing the kind of results that they felt Black people should have. So, what those two brothers did was sit down alone together at Bobby Seale's job in, I believe it was West Oakland Community Center, where Bobby was a counselor. All right. And they decided, first of all, Huey knew law. If any of you ever see videos of Huey, you will hear him spouting, this is ordinance number whatever, and you pig cannot tell me what. I mean, Huey knew law, okay? And Bobby knew cultural aspects of the Black nation, and he and Huey together stepped into the Black heroic tradition. Just two brothers. This is what they did. Now, Huey was more like, let's say, a full-time student. Huey really didn't have any money. Bobby had a job and was going to school and was married and had just had a baby. He just had a baby. Now, him and his wife, they lived in an apartment, I believe. But Bobby talked to his wife, and she was a nationalist as well. He told her that Huey and he were going to develop an organization where they would literally and legally challenge the power of the police. So this meant that they had to get an office. So Artie, his wife, had to be sacrificing some of the household money because she had just had a baby. She wasn't working. Okay. Sacrificed that money that could have gone towards the home and her and the baby so that Bobby Seale could put down money to rent an office for the new, spanking new, with two members of the Black Panther Party for self-defense. Why? Because they wanted freedom. They wanted something new that would, in fact, invigorate the Black liberation struggle. And that it did. And I also want to mention this because I really want our people who are listening to this to remember this. It was two brothers. There was no Fred Hampton in the Black Panther Party yet. Do you understand what I'm saying, people? And I'm even emphasizing this because very often, in fact, last night I was on a forum and many of the young people said, we can't find people who want to do anything. We can. Huey and Bobby, that was it. Okay? Because they wanted to have an independent organization where they could fulfill their ideology, their ideas in a way that would neutralize the brutality that Black men in particular were facing when trigger happy pigs would decide, let's go down to Nigger town and mess with the Black people. Because these are decisions when you see these policemen patrolling communities. So I always think about that notion of freedom. It was a new idea, Neff. That's where the freedom comes in. And not only was it a new idea, they were willing to put their resources into that idea without even knowing that one day Regina Jennings would jump on a plane to join them, or that Fred Hampton would say, this is, I want to do this, or Mark Clark. You don't know any of those kinds of things. But if you have a visionary idea of what your people need, and you have the courage to stand by that idea and implement it and empower it, that is, to me, is a form of freedom that is now a form of our legacy.
For sure. So as you were speaking, I was thinking about how were they striving for that flexible expression of the healed, of the original state of being, right? Where the healed inner voice reigns supreme. And I think about them being two brothers. And I know right now we can look at, the global stage, and we always talk about, and representation is the least of our objectives.
Mm-hmm.
But when I think about the fact that we rarely see Black men in that position
Mm-hmm.
of authority, of power, right? It's really interesting to think about how just the simple original state of being, which is like to be, and I don't mean be a man in the sense of how society has structured us to think
Right.
like a
Right.
constructed idea of this particular role, but literally the reality of just being able to be assertive, to be authoritative. Like even if that's over your own self, it's like I feel like I constantly see Black men like this. Like I feel, and I was just having a conversation with another sister about this worthiness wound that really exists not only in Black men but in our collective masculine energy period, because even the masculine aspect of us as women still has that wound. And it made me think about that second part of the definition of freedom as the healed inner voice reigning supreme. And it just brings me back to healing. It's like the aspect of us that needs to be healed, right? To feel even worthy of freedom.
Mm.
Because I feel that so many of us are not active
Mm-hmm.
in the movement toward liberation that is our destiny, because we're so demoralized, and so many of us are not even don't even feel worthy of existing,
Yes.
and are just moving through life. This we've touched on so many of the different issues that we're going through collectively speaking throughout the various episodes that we've had. But when I think about the Panthers and I think about how they had to, those two brothers, and it's so interesting that you said that because people make a lot of excuses. We have done so much over the years, the 9 years that we've been organizing, with little to nothing, but really
Mm-hmm.
sacrifice, energy, putting service,
Yes.
and
Service.
it's just so bizarre to me how we can put our attention in, um, spend our money on just all kinds of things. And when it comes to what we actually need, we are just full of excuses. Like no one's making excuses to go buy them $300 sneakers, but they will make an excuse or a million
Yeah.
to, I don't know, donate to a fundraiser or whatever it may be. It's just like, it's really interesting how our priorities are fucked up, for lack of a better way of putting it. And yeah, I mean, to me, I'm just like, I'm thinking about it and I'm like, these two brothers, like, they created an institution. These two
Mm-hmm.
brothers created an institution to move us towards freedom. And they had to act, they had to embody some level of freedom. They just had to push through the
They did.
threshold of where we were at that moment.
Mm-hmm.
And now we
Mm-hmm.
have to push further than that.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And
Because
check
now
this.
we have to actually do the healing. And that's the hard part. That's the hard part, because the act of courage that they showed was really to just be Black men in a position of authority and
Mm-hmm.
saying, you're not going to do this to us anymore, period. And to take an aggressive posture.
Mm-hmm.
So go ahead. What were you going to say, Mama Regina?
Okay, when you were talking about what they must have worked through, I just want to let people know Huey was shy. Do you hear me? Huey was exceedingly shy. I don't mean, stand back being cool. Huey was shy, very shy, okay? To the point that he even told Bobby, look, Bobby was a comedian and, very outgoing and all this kind of stuff. Like I said, he had a wife, he had a child and all like that. Huey was shy, okay? Uh, when Huey was a little younger, when he'd go to parties, and he was drop dead gorgeous. When he went to party, Huey would be in the corner. hmm So, why am I bringing him up in particular? For him to make a decision that he and Bobby made to start this brand new organization, unlike any other organization, Neff, it is no way that that brother did not say within himself, I have to push through my shyness. I have, he now, I don't have examples of this, but I do know the healing process. Yes, I do. And for a brother like him to push through his shyness, right? To bring up his courage over top of the shyness, just make it go all the way down and project courage. That is a form of healing. I don't know how he did it, and even Bobby, but I'm picking Huey even more so because I know it might be shocking for some of you to think Huey was shy. The Huey that I saw in the video that said, "Pig, I got my gun." Huey was very shy. Okay, and so he had to get rid of that in some way or submerge it to do the kind of things that he did.
I
So
definitely
I don't
think
know
he,
how he self-healed, but he did.
yeah, I definitely think it's something he overcame. I don't think it was like suppressed, but as you said it, it didn't feel surprising to me because I feel like when I saw him on like Donahue or like he didn't have like a. I would love to see his natal chart. We're definitely gonna do his natal chart for our series.
Okay, okay,
We're about to
okay.
do a series for coins and karis where we're gonna go through our ancestors
That would
that
be
are
lovely,
sort of
lovely.
ancestors
Yeah.
and do their natal charts. But I'd be curious because he didn't have that like bravado. Like it was you could tell it was genuine courage and it was cultivated because it wasn't like it didn't have that like macho thing to it. You know, he
Yes.
was real chill. Like
Yeah, he was. He
so I'm
was.
not surprised by that, but I'm glad that you shared that with us because that's a huge, huge example of the threshold that we each have to move through in order to experience, because we have to experience freedom within ourselves in order for us to create freedom. So I want to shout out our brother Rob, who's in the house. Shout out to the militia. Um, Peace, Rob. Well, I say power, because it is wartime. And I want to shout out anyone else who's here with us live. Feel free to ask any questions in the chat. So Mama Regina, I had a couple of things here that I wanted to make sure that we cover because one, freedom is our birthright. And I just find it very interesting that we're like our natural instinct for freedom has been so suppressed that a lot of us are fine with just like being able to be on the devices and, you know, buy things. You know, I really feel like the economic like system of capitalism is really significant to how we got to where we are right now, like the stagnation
Mhm.
energetically. But I'm wondering if you can think of any other specific contributing factors that you want to talk about as far as like that natural urge towards like being able to have that wild like expression, right? And
Yeah.
like how do you distinguish that though from just being able to do whatever you want?
Oh, well, okay. I'll go back to Bobby and Huey, and I'll even maybe throw in a few other people. First of all, you have to love yourself and love your people. You have to love yourself and love your people. You have to love yourself and love your people.
You
And you
have to
have to
love
want,
yourself. You have to love yourself to love your people.
you probably do, Neff. I mean, really, all of that is embodied in what it is that you do with this gift that the universe gave you to come to earth. You didn't have to come to earth if you didn't want to. I don't think, I'm not sure. But my point is, this life is a gift.
It is.
How dare you not use it if you're black to empower your people? How dare you do that? How dare you be that selfish? We were not selfish. I got up at 4:30 in the morning, Monday through Friday, to go feed hungry children because we knew that the children were our future. Now, what has happened though, that's by design. Remember, we have people who are billion trillionaires running this satanic country that loves war and blood. Okay? We've talked about this in other episodes. These people, they looked at H. Rap Brown, they looked at Stokely Carmichael, Michael Kwame Torre, Jamil Amin. They looked at Huey and Bobby. They looked at Jalil Muttaqim. They looked at Bunchy Carter. They looked at John Huggins. They looked at Angela Davis. They even looked at Regina Jennings. Okay, I'm not famous, but trust me, they looked. They said, now how can we stop this momentum? They deliberately targeted. Well, okay, if you haven't seen Judas and the Black Messiah, all right, the movie about Fred Hampton, do see it. Now I got some real problems with the movie because they spent too much time on a black pig, all right, and other pigs in the movie. I knew them when they said their names. I said, "Well, I'll be damned." All right, but in any event, they spent too much time there. But that movie does have merit. Okay, you need to see a Fred Hampton who was only 21 years old acting like he was 80 with wisdom. You ought to see a young brother who loved his people
That's a
so
real G.
much.
That's
That's
a
I
real G.
hey, hey, really. So these kinds of people had to be cut down because they had to be removed from society. The billion trillionaire vampiric people that control this country wanted. Now, so they weren't going to just shoot us all. They
Mm.
couldn't just kill us all, but they could make our lives rather miserable. They could also put uh, uncourageous black people in high places. See, let me just tell you this right off, Nev, because you mentioned you want to stab Tehuti Ma'at is based on principles of the Black Panther Party, but you've critically analyzed that movement, and you're looking at its strengths and its weaknesses. One of the weaknesses that we had, absolutely, we thought that if we could get black people in office, that would be a major triumph because black people, that's because we were like that. Black people love each other. We're going to look out for each other if we get in office. They're going to stop police brutality because they don't want to hit black people. Well, Rodney King showed us that that was a lie, but that's what we thought. And that's what we fought for. Okay. See, and when you know better, you do better. All right. I'm not saying we were wrong to think that way. It had never been done. Remember, we are the children that preceded or came after segregation. We didn't see a lot of black mayors and council. That was just impossible. You see. So one of our goals was to get black faces in high places. Bobby Seale even ran for mayor, him and Elaine Brown. All right, he came close. All right, okay, but He didn't make it. But I'm saying that to just show you one of our goals, all right, was to get Black faces in high places, Black sheriffs, Black police chiefs, Black mayors, and so, etc. Well, I have lived to see, okay, Black people in high places, and they've been outrageously selfish. Outrageously selfish. That's first. Then the power structure, okay, hunted us down quietly. Quietly. All right. Those of us who were in the academy, professors, no school would keep us. I'm not the only Panther with a PhD. Okay. And they'll hire us for a moment, but they won't keep us. And if you're out of a job, how much power do you have? How can you hold on to your house? How can you take care of your children properly? And other brothers, like I mentioned, Jalil Mutakim, Herman Wallace, uh, Brother Woodfox, all of these very intelligent and courageous BLA members, Black Panthers, they kept them in lockdown. There's a reason that Mumia Abu Jamal is still in prison. I think it's 30 years that he's done. And he's been swearing that he's innocent. All he asked for was a retrial, okay? Because people who believed him knew that he was targeted because he was. Because he was a brilliant Black Panther, brilliant journalist, and that's all he wrote about. He wrote about oppressed people worldwide. And then he became an affiliate of Move in Philadelphia. Move, whose house they bombed, right? They dropped a goddamn bomb on an all Black neighborhood and watch the neighborhood burn down to the ground. The fire trucks were right there. They had the hoses, and their chief probably said, let them N words burn. Okay? So,
And
and
the
wait,
only
guess
time
guess who went to jail for that? A Move member. No police, no fire people, none of that. They arrested I'm blanking on her name. Somebody in the chat knows her name. They arrested the Move member, one Move member, and the fire killed 8 others. So, what's going on here? They sought to isolate courageous men and women. They sought any way that they could put them in jail, make sure that they don't have employment, any way that they could, just stopping them, stalking them. If somebody is stalking you, I'll never forget this. I'm in Oakland at the time. I'm selling my Panther papers. And whenever we sold Panther papers, it was normally 2 of us together. So if we were stopped by the police, one could run away and let everybody know, Regina's been picked up. Well, me and my sister Panther, we were selling papers together, and then we split apart. Okay, she just saw people who she wanted to sell her paper to that she knew. So I'm on the other side of the street, maybe 2 blocks down in Oakland. Here come this car, unmarked, just a car. But when it started going slowly, now I'm walking. When it started going slowly, I was like, oh shit, um, pig rolled down the window. Hey, hey, Regina. I keep walking, selling my Panther papers. Then he called me by my nickname. Then he told me about my Panther husband. And then he sped off. Okay. So, and understand, I'm not from Oakland. I'm from Philly. This man knew some of my Philly history and certainly some of my Oakland history. And I was just a rank and file Panther. I never gave a speech. I couldn't even have talk then. I just took orders. So what I'm letting you know is that every city that had a branch of the Black Panther Party for self-defense, those Panthers were under surveillance. Okay. And several were killed. All right. So if they could get rid of the Panthers, they felt, then they could squash any kind of revolutionary movement. And it wasn't even just Panthers. There was a brother, why am I blanking on his name? He's a musician, and he put together an album. We had albums at that time, not, you couldn't get music on your iPhone because there wasn't no iPhones or nothing like that. Anyway, this brother, he made an album. It was called The Panther and the Lash. He was a jazz drummer and I believe a trumpeter as well. Well, he was doing really good. He was from Philly, and he got a contract to go to France. The Parisians wanted to hear him and his ensemble play. Do you know when he got to the airport, the police told him that you cannot board? Now, he's a musician. He ain't gave no political speeches, Nefos. None. He was not a Paul Robeson, who they banned, okay, from going abroad. He was not a Malcolm X, who they banned when he was trying to go abroad, okay, to fulfill an invitation, a contract from an international country. They banned this musician just because he named his album The Panther and the Lash. And they said that was too much like the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, and he was probably a member, which he was not. So, what am I getting at here? That fabulous group during the 60s and 70s were targeted, surveilled, and whenever possible, isolated. Okay? So then that meant the children of the next generation, they didn't have a Huey Newton in the flesh to look upon. They didn't have a H. Rap Brown as he was becoming Jamil. I'm doing it again, but Jalil Amin. They did not have other brothers whose names you wouldn't know. That image, especially of Apprentice Bunchy Carter. In fact, I encourage readers to look at chapter 8 of this book. It's on my website, Poetry in the Black Panther Party, From Ancestral Memory, Morphogenetic Fields to Hip Hop. I want you to check that book out, especially because I'm talking about Bunchy. Bunchy must be around me. He used to make every sister in the party just go, here comes Bunchy. I mean, he was amazing. All right. And so he had to be taken off of the scene, and he was taken off of the scene by black hands. This is also what they did. COINTELPRO, the FBI, CIA found some of the most ruthless brothers, some of the most awful black women to turn against their own people. So you would think that you got a friend, and that friend, a sister friend or a brother friend, would sneak out at night and go see their officers who were controlling them with money. Okay. By the way, some of them committed suicide later, which is good. Fine. Fuck you. I don't forgive them either. But this created a vacuum.
Yeah.
This created a vacuum that children without other images, all right, children saw or did not see courage. What they saw was accommodation, black faces in high places. All right. Many cities
Yes.
today have a black mayor, and what's going on? What's going on in these cities even today? So that is part of why you see what you're calling either the non-courage or the kind of laid back, too laid
Cowardice.
back brothers, not the fiery brothers that we need to see.
Yeah, and I'm not saying that to be offensive, but it's just like it's the cowardice, and I don't mean that across the board, but like I mean the spirit, the spirit. Because
I
I
do.
connected with some pretty strong brothers, but
Mm-hmm.
it's very few and far between. Now, and we were speaking of that in the context of looking at the Black Panther Party, right, as, one of the most forefront, images of liberation and a dedication to freedom. Now, you said a lot there that I want to touch on. So,
Okay.
first and foremost, I want to directly connect us to the fact that the entertainment industry is weaponized, and
Yep.
people really need to stop seeing it as entertainment, because that perspective is why we're being programmed so efficiently or successfully
Mm-hmm.
domesticated.
Mm-hmm.
And is really significant because they've been selling us this idea of the gangsta for a long time to
Yes.
replace the idea of the real G. Like I said, when you were talking about Fred Hampton, that's a real
Real
G.
G.
That's someone
Yes.
to actually look up to, who's exerting that energy, that positive, assertive energy, not that toxic, um, you know, literally killing people, selling drugs, like that image, and the glorification of that image and the glamorization of that image is what we're still experiencing today. And now it's being effeminized. So it's very dangerous what is going on and what is being sold to us via the music and the movies and Holly weird to begin with. So it's very important for us to recognize that that is part of the war tactics. And the aspect of that brings us to is the fact that when we're talking about freedom, we have to look at it from the highest vantage point, which is looking at the
Exactly.
spiritual lens, which is the part that's
That's right.
unseen, the part that's just energetic. Let's just say the energetics of it,
Mm-hmm.
because
Mm-hmm.
that imagery and the vibrations that are coming out in the music and what people are saying and constantly repeating and calling over their lives, that's all very significant. But on top of that, when you were talking about how the people have, um one of the missions for the Panthers was to get Black people in positions of power, and you know that's also a clear indication of the spiritual aspect that has to be dealt with, because it's not about just putting someone in that position. We have to be able to liberate ourselves spiritually so that we're healed in the deepest level, so that if we do end up in a position of power, which we touched on in the previous episode, the episode that was about preparing people for power, right? The 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 we have to be prepared for power. So when we have people who take those positions of power, but they are colonized in spirit, whether that's through religion or whatever it may be, they're still going to perpetuate values in accordance with that, with whatever aligns with their value system of whatever spiritual, tradition that they're carrying. And I love to quote Baba John Hendrik Clark, who said all religions, not even just the Western religions, even the Eastern religions, he said this, all religions are the handmaidens of conquerors. And we've become so deeply attached to dogma that we're not looking at the essence of what spirituality is even about, because we've gotten so religious about it. And that's why one of the things that we focus on, so when we talk about how do we create institutions, revolutionary institutions that genuinely lead to liberation, we have to genuinely go into the nature and the very essence of what it means to exist. Our cosmology has to go back to our original cosmic perspective that we had. And I'm talking about prior to colonialism, prior to the enslavement, prior to the invasions. I'm talking about when we were in our golden ages, which is why obviously the instrument is called Tehuti Ma'at, because we're going back to cosmic principles of universal law and cosmic truth, balance, justice, like going back and using our own, where was our golden age? And the fact that we actually carved into stone and knew that we would be here right now because we were that in tune and that connected with cycles of time, cycles and the cycles of nature that predestined us to even get here, because everything that goes up has to come down and come back around. What goes around comes around. You know, we say it all the time. So it's very, very important for us to recognize that the spiritual layer of things is very, very important in order for us to deal with issues like putting people in positions of power, having all these Black mayors and all these Black people doing things. And that's honestly being wielded against us, or having representation. And you have Black people on screen, but they're constantly perpetuating these deteriorating narratives that are not leading to our liberation. So yeah, at first we have to define that, but we also have to align it with our values. So as we've been going through the 11 pillar platform, we're going through these values. These are the values. This is the ideology of revolution. And we're defining it, and we're conversing about it so that we can have a deeper exploration, so you can explore a different vantage point and perspective of what's the trajectory, what do we see for ourselves. And when it comes to our freedom, we have to have the audacity to see ourselves free within our own context. Why are we thinking of a future that they're projecting onto us? Why can we only see robots and a future with, I don't know, hovering cars, or like, it's just like we can't even see a future for ourselves where we're free, but we can see all kinds of technological advancements. But what, we're going to be under the same construct? Why do you think every time that Hollywood puts out a movie of the future, you don't see no Black people? They don't plan on you being there. They're preparing for your genocide. So why are we aligning with that and not genuinely taking the energy that we're constantly putting out into our own self, so that we can see for ourselves how to liberate ourselves? How are you going to feed yourself? How are you going to free yourself so that you can contribute to the freedom of the collective? So this is the type of accountability that we have to have. This is the type of inventory and examination that we have to have. This is the type of accountability that we need to have. So stop playing the games. Like, that's, you know, that's my thing, is like, we need to stop playing. So that being said, you also mentioned move. And I was going to say, when you were talking about that, if I'm not mistaken, the only time that the government of the divided states has dropped a bomb on its own territory, if I'm not mistaken, has only been on Black people. And if, for people who are not familiar with MOVE, I believe there's the documentary, I think it's called Let the Fire Burn, on YouTube. You could watch that, but there's a lot of different documentaries about MOVE and what happened in Philly. The other thing, oh, and then you mentioned COINTELPRO, so I wanted to talk about that, because there's another great documentary that I want people to watch on YouTube. It's called Citizens Commission to Investigate the FBI, 1971. This documentary is really great because it shows how they were able to actually get the classified FBI documents talking about COINTELPRO even existing. And that is the counterintelligence program that they use to dismantle the institutions and the organizations for liberation that existed during that period. That still exists right now. If you were out there protesting at any point, because I remember back in 2014 when they did the Freedom of Information Act and they put out there, yeah, they was tracking all of us, every single person who was out on the streets. And I know that you talk, it's so funny that you're talking about that, because I remember the undercovers driving by the garden, and you think you're doing something so innocent, but the moment that you're active and you're on the streets, you're immediately seen as a threat. Why? Because the courage that it takes to do that. A lot of people couldn't get out there and do that. I love a good street team. Now, I'm not all about marching. Obviously, we focus on building institutions. We focus on making sure we're teaching people practical skills. But there's an aspect of that is necessary, and that has always been necessary, because what it represents and what it puts out into the spirit, the collective spirit, is resistance. Resistance is very important. Resistance may not be liberation, but at least resist. So the people who have the courage to go out there and resist which means you're pushing against, that's necessary. But with Tehuti Ma'at, what we focus on is efficiency. When you're resisting, you're pushing against the current. And we don't have to do that at this point. If people are in certain stages in their journey and they feel that that's what they need to do, great. But at this point, we have to be more strategic, because when we're talking about freedom and liberation, we're talking about longevity. And the truth of the matter, when I reference Temple Walls saying that we would be here, and I talk about us having prophecies that predestined that we would be in this moment, those prophecies predestined our victory. Those prophecies predestined our resurrection. So we don't have to swim against the current. You can float if you know the current is going towards your freedom. But what's happening right now is we're actually resisting the current that's trying to take us to our freedom, because we're aligning with the enemy. And a lot of us are unable to and afraid to even say that there is an enemy. And I always say my enemy is a friend to me because I understand the cosmic aspect that a lot of people who know about spiritual things want to escape from, right? And the fact of the matter is both can exist. Both can exist. Yes, everything is everything, but still we have to look at things and distinguish one from another. We're in different bodies, but yes, we are all one. Both can exist. So these fundamental ideas are what we have to heal in order to be able to liberate ourselves. If we can't liberate our minds and we look at everything through the dichotomy that the Greco-Roman paradigm, where it's always either or and it's always pulling things apart, it's always objectifying. The way we're objectifying each other. We've had a lot of episodes where we've talked about the relationships between Black women and Black men. We can't adopt our enemies' philosophies and values and expect to move towards freedom. We will never be free in that case, because the primary institution that we need, the first institution we need to build, is the family. So until we recover the family and restore the family and establish strong family dynamics, that's primary. But that begins with each of us, again, being accountable to freeing ourselves. Because how much stuff are we suppressing within our own selves? And then what happens when that just starts raging from within? So I just wanted to touch on all the different things that you had mentioned, Mama Regina, because that was all very significant. So I also wanted to shout out some people who have commented in there. Shout out to our brother Mercurial Lore Power. And we also have a question here from Trigger. Oh, did it get off the screen? Trigger Happy. Ooh. Do you see it, Mama Regina? Oh, there we go. How do we go about returning to our cosmology, especially when some of our people, both on the continent and diaspora, would argue that Abrahamic practices have a history in Africa? All right, that's a great question. I'm going to take well, I don't want to block your face, Mama Regina, but should I put all right, I'm going to leave the question up for a second, because I also want to allow you to answer it as well. Now, Abrahamic practices, if we're talking about Christianity, right? When people say, some people may not have the full context, but I want to recommend Dr. Ben's book, Dr. Yosef Ben Yakinen's book, The African Origins of the Major Western Religions. Very great book, specifically on this topic, because the origins of the Western religions does come from our tradition. But we can say that the African root is the root of all of the traditions, even the Eastern traditions, because we're talking about going back to the source. But the traditions have been bastardized. And the further west we get, the more bastardized it is and the more politicized it is. So when we look at verses in the Bible that are telling people, make sure you follow any established authority. You know that the Roman Empire, you know that the emperor put that in there for the emperor's benefit. There are a lot of different aspects of the Bible that are not according to the original story. Now, if we look at the original story of Ast, Asar, and Heru, which we've talked about several times, we're also going to get pretty deep into this. Tomorrow, we have an episode of Navigating Eternity. It's our last episode of the live stream series for Navigating Eternity. So, for this season. So if you want to tune in, we're going to be talking about the Ring of Fire solar eclipse that's taking place on Saturday, the 14th, if you're watching this in real time. But the reason why I bring that up is because the best way that I could say we return to our cosmology is we return to ourselves, because our cosmology is a consubstantiation, as above, so below, one of our original proverbs. Right? So the same thing that's happening outside is what's happening inside. The deeper we connect with ourselves, the deeper we connect with everything that's happening. But we don't really have a deep trust for that. And a lot of us are afraid of going inside. So when we look at the cosmos and we're talking about cosmology, that's what we're talking about, the astrology. When we say as above, so below, we're talking about the energy dynamics that take place in the heavens are literally unfolding before us in our lives. So being present with your life is key in that case. So how do we return to our cosmology? Is we get out of this vortex of these devices that are constantly pulling us out of ourselves. We get out of the vortex of these religions that are constantly pulling us out of ourselves to look for divinity and for deities outside of us. And I don't even care if those are African traditions and religions, because there are also African traditions and religions that have also come through our Ma'afa. Now, they have gotten us here. They were created for our survival, and I give thanks for everything that they have provided. But nonetheless, that's not us returning to our original cosmology. So that to me is very important. We have to return to ourselves. Now, if you're interested in aligning with like-minded beings, specifically, like I feel Tehuti Ma'at is for advanced souls, people who came for this work. So you get to a certain point in your journey where you're clear on that. We're not looking for anyone. We're signing a beacon for, if you came for this work, this is your calling, this is your soul contract, and you will align with this work. And that's our central piece, is to make sure that we return to our cosmology. The course that we created, Navigating Eternity. I mentioned the live stream series that the season is going to end tomorrow, but the live stream series is a build off on Navigating Eternity, which is our initiation process. It's literally a online course that guides you into this medicine of navigating eternity, which I cultivated for 8 years before bringing out publicly, which was at the top of the year in January. It was the first time it came out publicly, but I was working on it for 8 years before it even came out publicly. And the reason why that program exists is to orient us into our solar consciousness, to remember that we're on a solar powered planet. We are solar powered people, African people. I don't care where you were born. We're solar powered people. We're carbon based people. Kum. That's why we're returning to Kemet, when we were in the power and authority of our so-called blackness, right? That carbon nature that many people call melanin. It's that carbon compound. We're on a solar powered planet. So we have to orient ourselves back to the sun, back to revolution, our revolution around the sun, and out of this Greco-Roman linear paradigm that has been enslaving us and continues to enslave us. That is how we get to the source of our freedom. We have to free the way that we even think about our existence and our movement, our energy, because it's really an energy management system. You know, we call it a holistic time management system, but it's really about energy management, right? And aligning with cycles of nature. So to me, that's what I can offer. That's what we already have. That's what we are dedicated to. And I don't know if you have any other thoughts on this that you can share, Mama Regina, to answer this brother's question. Well, I don't know if it's a brother or sister. Oh, you're on mute. Let me unmute
Okay.
you.
The
Go ahead.
first thing I would say, and it relates back to other subjects that we've been discussing here. I'm gonna take the movie The Black Panther. Okay. Now, one of the reasons that that movie was even made is because people have been keeping our legacy alive. Oh God, thank you so much. But look what they did in the movie with the beautiful Angela Bassett. Look what they did. Think of the ending. I know many of you who are looking at this program saw the movie The Black Panther. In the end of the movie, the Black Panther is cooperating and inviting the FBI, CIA into his home. That's the end. I sat in that movie. I said, I knew it. I knew it. Now, what does that do to young, uninformed people? Oh, look at that. Isn't that a good matchup? They're not thinking about all the Panthers and Panther supporters that were killed and beat up and mutilated by COINTELPRO. Movies, in fact, have been made, especially since the 70s and 80s, to confuse you, populace. They've been made to confuse you. They've been made to show you that you're not at war with them when you are. You are living in war territory right now. And your children should be taught about that as well. Show them how to live, but also make sure that they understand the circumstances that they are living under. Because when Nef Oz talks about the foundation of any nation, any community is the Black family, that is absolutely true. That is true. We must bring forth warriors, male and female. We've got to tell our children the truth about this country. We have to teach them that. And I've noticed that young people, well, I don't want, oh, I'm going to give you a real example. I guess this was back in the 80s. It was probably in the 80s. This sister told me, and I was glad she did. She said, look, I really don't want my sons around you because see, I don't want them, now I'm paraphrasing, but I don't want them radicalized. I mean, I want my sons to live. So I can't. I think you're wonderful, Regina, but I can't have my son. And these are her sons. So I did say that. I said, look, I'm not teaching them anything that's going to make them, be killed. I said, first of all, let's look at death. You're not going to get off of earth alive. I said, I'm
Thank
not
you.
teaching them to, do something to jump off a cliff, to walk into, I'm not teaching them. I'm not teaching them to go after cops I'm not teaching them that. All I was doing was teaching them their history and the historical legacy of Black resistance in America. Now, we didn't end disliking each other, especially me. But I could not believe, well, I could, but it surprised me. And it's something that I've kept with me all these years that mothers and probably some fathers, they don't even want their children. And I'm not talking about 6 and 7 and 8 years old. I teach college. They don't want their children to know the truth about this country. So when you say, I haven't quite seen brothers like I want to in mass who really bring forth their courage and, what made me get on a plane to join Huey and Bobby, I saw film of them, Bobby and Huey, with their guns, talking. I was like, damn, I didn't even have to know what they were saying. It didn't matter. It didn't matter. Their courage just spewed forward.
The
But
energy.
the energy, you have parents today, because this is a personal experience. Then combine that with movies that have Black people in them, but the movies are lies. They are absolute lies. And I have respect for everybody's religion. I absolutely do. At the same time, though, I cannot overlook the fact that the English and the Dutch and the Germans and all these other invaders and colonizers of Africa, they went to Africa, as Dr. Ben is going to tell you in the book that Neff mentioned, with the Bible and the gun. This is what they did. And I'm sure many of you, if not all of you who are looking at this video, know what has happened to Africa for the last 500 years, you see. And then when we were enslaved, that same Bible was used. Obey your master. Now, the master might be raping you every way possible and lynching you, lynching your brother, cousin, or whatever. Obey your master. Okay. Your reward is in heaven. This, they use that same holy book. The Jews are the chosen. Why would a God choose one people over another, and he's made all of these fabulous different kinds of people?
Why would a
What kind
God
of
be a
God is that?
Why would God be a man? Or a
No
woman?
woman. No woman. Well, so I mean, and again, you're Christian, that's fine. All right. But Jesus tore down some houses in the Bible that they never talk about. He went to war with the money changers. That's what Jesus did. He didn't just say, turn the other cheek and smile and love you. He didn't say that.
Well, but they do say that he said that.
Right, right.
They say that he
So,
said turn the other cheek.
right. This is what we have here. So it's so important, I think, what Nefos is talking about for the future and empowerment of our people. We've got to start individually with ourselves, heal thyself, and we've got to then spread that message. It doesn't matter if people walk away from you. So what? So what? Some other people are going to agree with you and want to know more. You never should concentrate on what you don't have or who didn't listen to you. You don't,
But that's
you
why we
just,
have to be solid in ourselves, because if we're not gonna people do not want to hear the truth. A lot of people don't want to hear the truth.
that's right.
But the reality is, in and that's the position to be a leader, is you're leading. You're leading the way. And
Mm-hmm.
the unfortunate thing is a lot of people have a misconception, because people look at the story of Malcolm now, or even Dr. King, and think that everyone was with them because we all, ride for them now. And the
Right.
fact of the matter is, during their time, the majority
Mm-hmm.
of Black people did not support them.
That's right.
So
You
it's
are
very
correct.
important to recognize that they led the way. They were ahead of their time. That's the essence of leading. You go ahead. So there's not going to be nobody in front of you, and there ain't going to hardly be anybody next to you or behind you at first. So you have to be convicted in the truth and
Mm-hmm.
know what you're here to do, which is why you have to do that inner work. It's so important. And then when you mentioned the FBI again, I just wanted to put up this
Good.
title of this documentary, because it's so important for people to know about COINTELPRO,
Mm-hmm.
because Hollywood has put out so many movies glamorizing the FBI and the CIA and the NYPD and every other police department. And a lot of us are deeply programmed, and we don't know who we're dealing with. We
That's
don't
right.
know our enemy actually at all. And we're sleeping on them. And that's a problem. So we need to know the reality of what we're dealing with, what has been done, and know, trust, and believe is still happening now at the highest
That's right.
possible degree.
Mm-hmm.
So
Mm-hmm.
there's a reason why they want to get everything online. There's a reason why they're striving to
That's
change
right.
to a centralized, to a
That's right.
centralized digital currency because they want to control everything that you're able to do. And this is very important right now as we're in this major economic shift that's about to take place. So that being said, I just wanted to touch on some final comments that are on here. Hi, Danny. Blessings, Danny. It's good to see you. So shout out to Militia in the house. A lot of it is accepting simplicity. The simplicity, this was about the cosmology, I believe. The simplicity of
Mm-hmm.
the day will bring you to truth. And it is really that simple because when
Mm-hmm.
we think about sunlight, when we think about the day, it's that simple. You know the sun's gonna rise. You know the sun is gonna rise. You ever doubt it?
About that.
That's the inspiration right there.
Mm-hmm.
And that's going to be the
Mm-hmm.
perfect closing for our season on revolution being the only solution, because next Tuesday, for our final episode of the season, we're going to be covering the final pillar of the 11 pillars, which is revolution. So tune in next Tuesday. If you're here with us live and you have any final burning questions or comments, you might want to get them in here. And Mama Regina, do you have any closing remarks or
Yes,
anything?
I actually do. I'm feeling this very strongly. Be bold, people. Be bold. Show the world who you really are as it relates to Black people and Black people's empowerment. Those of you who have children, teach your children city planning. If you don't know how to plan a city, then take them to city officials that are planners. Okay, think about a nation that we could build strategically, structurally, right within the United States. All right, don't confine yourself to the foolishness that's on TV. Try to lower the amount of television that you look at, and certainly your children. Good Lord. Give them hobbies. Have them work on puzzles. Give them games that will make them think about how to move forward or backward or sideways. Always keep them thinking. They're curious. Don't just give them a toy, give them an experience, right? Take them to dance recitals, Black people dancing. Okay? Take them to jazz concerts, for children. Just think about how you, as a mother and father, can help to build a strong Black family. Narrow in your objectives, narrow them down. And don't, I was with people over the weekend, young people. I don't know what I want to do. I got my little job and, it paid a bit. Don't think like that. What did the universe bring you to earth to do? And you do know what it is. You bury it probably because you haven't brought up your courage. But just remember, be bold. Boldness is in you. All right? Don't feel like you are alone. You're not. Angels are all around you. God is all around you. The universe is all around you. Okay? Don't feel that way. And if you have made mistakes, so what the fuck? Those mistakes are to help you to get to the right answer of what it is that you really want to do. And always have a plan for the future. And not only praise God, but look for God in your life. Things that happen to you that you don't even think about the creator. The creator has put them in place for you. You are on earth to overcome yourself. Okay? A challenge is what's going to make you stronger. All right? And know that you are deeply loved by many people. Okay? One
People who
is my
loved you
partner
before you
here.
got here.
You know? So think more deeply about your life. It's not a bunch of challenges and white racism. All that's there now is there. But make that into your life and deal with it in a way that brings you beauty, love, and most of all, courage.
Hmm. I see. Yeah, I would love to add to that because that dominion over your lower self is so important, and I touch on this in several episodes when I talk about the mythology of Heru and Set battling, and we have to overcome our lower self, but we have to see the purpose of our lower self. That gravity is to
Yeah,
strengthen us. It
yeah.
builds muscle. So we have to have the audacity. We have to have the audacity to see our freedom. We have to have the audacity to envision what is that? What is that going to look like? As Mama Regina said, use your energy to fuel the vision of our freedom. We need that. We need that energy. Retrieve it. Take it back. Take it back from all the parasites because we need to see these sovereign institutions. We need to see these medical and healthcare institutions and facilities. We need to think about how we're going to have aid in the context of warfare when we're
Mm-hmm.
talking about it materializing. We need to have food, agriculture, supermarkets. How are we going to feed transportation cooperatively? Education, preparing our children for their role in the world as world leaders, the next generation, right? Prepare them for freedom because right now they're just prepared to work. Some of them aren't even prepared for that because they think robots are going to take their jobs. So, narrative, what's the future we want to see? Stop fueling their future and create the right now. Move in the direction of our destiny. Banking, financing. How are we going to build infrastructure?
That's right.
How are we
Mm-hmm.
actually going to fund these institutions?
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to develop our own currency? Everything can change in the blink of an eye.
That's true.
What would it be like if a bomb dropped? We haven't experienced that yet. Recognize that everything you think is important can change in the blink of an eye.
That's right.
The family, family, family. Come back to that. Our families are a reflection of our connections to ourselves and to one another. The
Mm-hmm.
sisterships that we have, our brotherships, are a reflection, the same way we're going to relate with other people. We can't escape that. We need to heal our families. We need to face our families. And responsibility, we need to take responsibility for our destiny, for creating our reality. We have to take responsibility, period. We have the power. Stop giving it away.
Mm-hmm.
And that's all I have to say.
One more thing that I gotta add to that. I just thought about it. All of you listening, I know you know Malcolm. I know you know certain things about Malcolm. Maybe you've read his autobiography. Malcolm's father built his home. Every time they moved, this man, Earl Little, had the skills to build a home for his wife and his children. And let me tie this into what we had talked about earlier, what has happened to our people. When I've gone to historically Black colleges that were around during segregation and maybe right even after slavery, do you know what part of their curriculum was? The men had to learn how to build furniture. The women had cooking classes. It's nothing wrong with a cooking class geared for girls. The girls, and this is in addition to science and math and English. The girls had sewing classes. When I went to school, I learned how to sew in school. I also learned how to play the violin in school. Neff, the programs that they took out of the schools immediately, I'm talking about just regular schools, was art, music, I'm gonna call it handiwork, where men in particular would learn how to make things, and cooking and sewing class. They removed those to the point that I have been with young people, this is not an exaggeration, who have children. A button comes off the sweater. They threw the sweater out. I'm telling you. And we ain't talking about rich people that could, just I'm gonna go buy another sweater, or I'm gonna get the buttonless sweater to the Salvation Army. No, these are poor sisters, in a family, even the husband. You let something happen where you need to hem, or these women didn't know how to do it. They didn't know how to do it.
Sorry, you just made me think about because I was thinking about this the other day. Because, I'm here. I'm in Cabo Verde right now. I wasn't born here, but I was thinking about how I'm so thankful and blessed for this opportunity to be here and be learning all of the different things, like how to cook over a fire and how to farm manually and all the things that I've been able to do here. But most importantly, just the craftiness of being able to just make something out of nothing, and nothing really ever goes to waste. It's like things that I used to just feel like, oh, I would just throw away. I've removed that programming after it took about 3 years. But it's something about being in the city. It's something about this like disposable reality of everything being disposable.
Yeah.
That we really have to shift, because we're being very wasteful. And yeah, we're really going to have to deal with that too. That's a big, it's like a subtle thing, but it's really big. And then even what you were saying about the woodworking and all the things being removed out of the school, the trades, even, like trade schools. It's very important for us to recognize that it's fine to have roles and traditions, and
Yes.
we can challenge the areas and the ways that those traditions have been harmful and are not in balance. But we really have to be okay. It doesn't mean that we just completely remove all structure and order, because that's why we're experiencing chaos right now. But I do recognize that the reason why we're experiencing chaos right now is because we were in a state of imbalance and people really pushed back. But, the pendulum swinged all the way to the other side. So I'm trusting that naturally we're going to align back into center and balance it out, because yeah, we really need some structure right now. So that being said, I want to shout out another militia member, Brother Kamal. Welcome, best community on this platform. Oh, give thanks. I love you and we appreciate you. Shout out to everyone else in the Tehuti Ma'at militia who joined us today. And if you are interested in being a part of this revolutionary instrument, then you can join the Tehuti Ma'at militia. That is our membership program. You could even just join if you want to support the work that we're doing, the community service, organic food for the people, the programs that we've been doing over the years that we are constantly moving through cycles in, like the Sankofa Youth Workshop and all the other things that we're doing. You can read all about us at tehutimaat.org. And if you want to join and become a member, you'll have access to our exclusive benefits for members. So you'll get our Moonly report. You'll also have access to our Intuit Healing Cipher, which is a community healing cipher that we do on our private server. So you get access to our private server, which is known as the ARC, the African RAvolving Center. You'll get access to the different chat channels. And then As you go up in rank, if you go into the Empire rank, you get access to our classes and our workshops. And if you go into the Galaxy rank, then you get access to Navigating Eternity, which is our initiation program. It is the online course that I mentioned earlier. And Navigating Eternity is essentially going to orient you into the instrument to be a contributor. So you can actually contribute to the various cooperative institutions that we've created, and also integrate your particular organization. So if you are a leader in an organization, if you're an entrepreneur, then that's also a great way that you can connect with us on that particular rank. So if you want more information, you can go in there. If you do have any questions, you can also reach out to us via email, or you can text 646-883-Ma'at. The email is grow@tehutimaat.org. And as we mentioned before, we want you to support Mama Regina as well at her website, which is apanthersister.com. I'm going to put that back on the screen also. So you can see Mama Regina's books there, and you can order Mama Regina's books. And you can also check out the library that she mentioned with other book recommendations. Okay. So I want to thank everybody for being here with us today. And then finally, I want to ask those who want to support the channel and the work that we're doing, please go ahead and give us a donation via Cash App at $Tehuti Ma'at World. And I want to shout out Geeky, who gave us a donation from our last live stream. So thank you for your support.
Lovely.
We appreciate you. And yeah, I hope everyone has a beautiful night.
Yeah.
And thank you for tuning in. Power. Thank you, Mama Regina.
Power.
See you next Tuesday.
Yes, ma'am.